I'm going to do explanation for a couple of these problems that you had questions on. So it looks like you're doing the theory-based input correctly because you've got these correct. So you put everything in. My sample size is 22. My mean of the sample, that's my x bar, equal 48. And the standard deviation of the sample, S, equals 17. And we're doing a 90% confidence interval. So these are all correct. So that's good. You put all those in correctly. I would, however, round to 2 decimal places because this is talking about how much you spent on a present. So in dollars and cents, this, it did mark it correct, but I probably would have entered it as 41.76 and 54.24. All right. But it's not giving you a problem there. And then you've got the sample statistic correct. So it looks like where the questions are around calculating margin of error and writing the confidence interval in the margin of error form. So when you pulled it out of the theory-based applet, it gave you this format here, which is interval form. All that means is that the low end of the interval is 41.7634 and the upper end is $54.23. Oh, this should be 6. All right. So what does that really mean? If we have an interval and this is the low end and this is the high end, the way this works is that the center of that interval is always equal to your sample statistic 48. So the low end is 41.76, the upper end is 54.24, and the center is $48. The margin of error is just calculating the distance from the center to the upper range and from the center to the lower range. So the upper range, though, is just 54.24 minus 48, $6.24. So we can calculate the margin of error. We take the upper range minus the observed statistic, $6.24. We take the center minus the lower range, $6.24. It's literally just how far is it from the center to the lower range and to the upper range. All right, so this, I don't know if you just maybe calculated, you have $7.24, but it's $6.24. So I don't know if you just maybe, this maybe is a typo. This should be $6.24. All right, but down here, this confidence interval, when you see this plus or minus, it wants you to write the confidence interval in the margin of error form. That form is sample statistic plus or minus margin of error. So you're literally just taking the prior pieces that you have. Your sample statistic is 48. That's what I have here. And then the margin of error is $6.24. You literally just write plus or minus $6.24. And then if you do the math, you're just going to get this interval that you already calculated. The low end is 48 minus 6.24. The upper end is 48 plus 6.24, which would give you exactly what you got out of the tool, 41.7634, 54.236. Let's go to the next one. Same thing here. You're just getting confused with what the margin of error is. So you put everything in the tool correctly. We had our n equals 100. That's our sample size. 79 had kids. So 79 out of 100 is my p hat, which is equal to 0.79. So you got that correct here. You put it in the theory-based applet, you get the proper percentages. All right, you got this correct here for B. They wanted it as a decimal. You got that correct. The margin of error. So again, let's draw a little number line if that helps to begin with. The margin of error is representing the distance from the center, which is the statistic, the p hat, the distance from that p hat to the upper end of the range, 0.857, or to the lower end of the range, 0.723. So this margin of error you can calculate by taking the upper limit, 0.857, minus the p hat, or the center, gives you 0.067. That's what you have here. This 0.8570 is the upper end of the range. That's not what it's asking for. Now for this confidence interval, again, it wants you to write it in margin of error form. It wants you to write it as the p hat plus or minus the margin of error. Oops, that's not x bar, that's p hat. So you're now just taking the pieces that you already put in. 0.79 is your p hat, and then you calculated your margin of error plus or minus the margin of error. Same thing here. So in this case, your n equals 30. You got that correct because you put everything in. From that sample of 30, you had a mean of $40. That's your x bar equals $40. And your standard deviation, S, is equal to $11. 98% confidence interval. Got that. Okay. Sample statistic, that's your x bar. Got that. The margin of error. If you need to draw a line, sort of a number line, you're always going to put your sample statistic in the center, x bar. Here's my upper limit right here, 44,944. Here's my lower limit here. My margin of error just measures the distance from the center to the upper limit, the center to the bottom limit. And literally, if I take my x bar plus my margin of error, I'm going to get this number, x bar plus margin of error. That's what the upper limit is. And the lower limit is just x bar minus the margin of error. To calculate that, all right, I take 44.9445 minus 40 gives me $4.94. So this 4, I'm not sure where that came from, where you got that from, but it should be $4.94. And now this down here is just asking you to write it in the form of x bar plus or minus the margin of error. You've sort of rounded these upper and lower limits. That's not what it's asking for. It just wants you to take part B and C and write it in the margin of error form. So this should be $40, $40 my center, plus or minus my margin of error, $4.94. So if you did this math here, it's going to give you this range back, just as converting between the two formats. Hope that helps.